Greetings, friends. This is Ian MacKenzie here with The Crow's Nest. This is a weekly mythic take on the times that we're in. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by a guest who's been a prominent presence at the Fairy Creek happenings over this last, at least, I think, about 2 years or so. And we're going to jump in really quick, but I'm going to say a few words first about my guest today, Auntie Rainbow Eyez. Hearing the call of the forest and following instructions from elders of the territories, ancestors in spirit, Rainbow Eyez has been a key defender of ancient forests on Vancouver Island, including the old growth forests of Fairy Creek, since 2020. Rainbow Eyez is a Ha-ma-yas Stewardship Network Guardian for the Awaetlala First Nation. She has worked for 4 years as a guardian in Knight Inlet, where she helps to protect the lands, waters, wildlife, and cultural values for future generations. And in June 2022, this year, she was named a deputy leader to the Green Party of Canada. And so, welcome, Rainbow Eyez.
Hey, Ian. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. A bit more context for the listeners and the viewers that I believe we first crossed paths. I think it at Fairy Creek, and the one visit I did, and it was early April when I was there also to gather interviews with folks, including Shamba, as well as to be there on the ground and see what's happening. I've also interviewed Elder Bill Jones, who's been obviously a big presence there, and Grandma Losa for another event. This was the Heart of the Feminine that we did last year. So I feel in some ways I've been trying to reflect through media as much as I can and support, what's gone on there at Fairy Creek. Those who are listening as well, a little further context if you haven't heard, it has been a major sort of global event, I think, in some sense that, I had folks reaching out from all over the world saying, wow, what can I do to support? And it has now become, I think, the longest running Canadian sort of civil action, I suppose, it might be one way to say it, uprising on behalf of the forests of the planet. And also, I think the most arrested, I believe, as well, for any kind of public action. I mean, there's some metrics to give maybe a sense to the listener, at least from that side. But I'd love to hear from you in that regard too. Where are you at now with what's going on with the movement? Maybe a little about what first drew you there too as well. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's great. Like myself, I have 5 arrests. So wow. That's what they're counting. And there's so many people that had multiple arrests, and that just kept going back. Anyways, Gayla Kesla, thank you. Nuko Rainbow Eyez. I'm a member of the Awaetlala First Nation, and our traditional territory is Knight Inlet. I come from the Glendale family and the Davidson family, and that's very important for us to first say where we come from. And it traditionally in our communities, we would introduce ourselves and say who our parents are, because that's important. And I think it's something that we've been disconnected with, and that's why we have a lot of the division and that we have, and the people speaking out that cause problems, which we see everywhere, is because people speak and they don't have the backing of families and respect and the way that things are, should be. So that's, and at Fairy Creek, at Fairy Creek, I actually went there because Autumn Sky did a video. And she was posting the artist, and making the leap to face the fact that there is still old growth logging going on, and realize that it's right in our backyard here on the island was really hard. And it took me almost 2 months to finally click on the videos that were being made and to look at them and really take them in. Because it's a lot of heavy energy, but I love it that it was Autumn Sky, because it was her beauty and her art that helped me acknowledge the destruction that was happening. And that's something that I understand a lot of people cannot do, because they have so much going on in their own lives. But It's through music, it's through things like this, real conversations, art, documentary, that we're really going to touch so many people's hearts.
Mm. Thanks for naming that, the way of introducing it, as well as the power of beauty. And I feel as well, for me, seeing some of the juxtaposed images, it was actually of some of these old growth ancients, before and after, before as in as they've been, and then after they were cut, and the devastation was so soulfully just impactful that I wept just seeing these images. And so I think for me in this conversation as well, there's lots of data that could be trotted out, and often is, around maybe the sides, right, of this kind of complex happening, whether it's the logging companies, whether it's the families that depend on the jobs, whether it's the Indigenous folks there, the council and other folks who, like, there's all these factors that are going on, and yet oftentimes there can be missed this like deep dimension of simply what is right. Maybe that's one way to say it, right? Like, what is right? Like, what is it to stand on the side of beauty, and diversity and life in a way that it just cuts through any data about it, And I feel like you often speak with so much heart, I find, around these happenings, that I would love to hear your take on, like, what is the kind of, what's at stake, or how does one see this battle in a way that maybe introduces it in a way that is beyond the simplicity of simply good guys and bad guys.
Yeah. So it's interesting that, like, I come from a family of loggers. It's what my grandfather did, it's what my uncle did, and my cousins. And it's a different view of it, because we did it small scale, our family, and traditionally, and a lot of old school loggers do it, but the way that they're doing it now, with the clear cutting and the way that they destroy all life when they replant, and it has no heart. It's we've lost the connection, and that's the big problem. And the fact that industry right now has a lot of nations under their thumb. And the things that John Horgan said recently in a press conference of, like, you have no idea what it's like to be a nation on a reserve. It's insane. He just did an interview, and the way that he spoke was so one-sided, because the government is giving contracts to nations, and they're putting everybody in straitjackets. They have no choice. And they're taking advantage of people in First Nations and putting them all in one basket. And then they're calling us, who went to Fairy Creek, who followed the call of Elder Bill Jones of the Apache First Nation, and saying that we're settlers, they're putting us all in a box. That's what John Horgan was saying. And saying that we're saviors, that people are there and they're saviors, and they're and it's just so wild. But I just want to get this quote in that Elder Bill said really recently. And he said, Elder Bill Jones of the Apache, who invited us in to Fairy Creek to protect the traditional territories of the Apache and the Dididat. It's their old hunting and fishing territories. He said, we need to start listening to Mother Earth again. We need to center and find ourselves. And this is everybody. We need to listen to Mother Earth. And then when we don't, Father Sky, Grandfather Sky will come in, and he will make us listen. And this is the thing. And I think this is where we are. There's a lot of stories about when the people do not listen to spirit, a higher power will come in and make them listen. And that's what Elder Bill has just started saying. And he's so incredible. And he's like, Grandfather Sky is going to come in and he's going to do something, and he's going to make the people listen. If we don't listen to our Mother Earth, you know, and tune in and listen to the trees. And yeah, you asked in the beginning, like, I honestly feel like everybody that was able to make it to Fairy Creek was listening to their hearts and heard the call of the forest, are listening to the Amazon is calling, who are listening to the people up in Wet'suwet'en to save the Yinta and the sacred river there, that the drill pad is there. They're about to drill. And it's crazy. And the people there have been fighting industry, and they've been listening to the call of the forest, but it's industry and the colonized world that aren't listening, and it's Grandfather Sky that is going to come in and make the people listen if we don't wake up.
Stirring. I'm stirred by that rendering as well. And I think what strikes me is from this, or maybe to say it like this, you know, it seems to me, and it seemed to a lot of, you know, even like the research and those that are willing to really honestly look at the level of destruction and the consequence, that modern industrial civilization is incompatible with life. Like the way that modern industrial civilization is not compatible with life. So all of these questions that people have around, like, but we got to save the jobs, like that's important. But it's like, wait, but they're not, it doesn't work like that. Like, of course the jobs will disappear once there's no trees. And so there's some kind of, maybe I could call it, it's a dishonest rendering, I think, to say that it's like, let's say First Nations, you know, environmentalists against industry, as opposed to, maybe I think it's what it is they're for life. Maybe that's one way I might say it, right? It's like that, but they're not against industry, but they're for life, which means that it can't be rendered in these kind of too small battle, right, of two sides, because life is everything. I mean, life is where, of course, everything comes from. She is where everything comes from. So for me, it in that sense, it's more of it's a mythic and a moral maybe dimension that is actually at the heart of it. Because if it's rendered in data, which is like, again, this like intellectualized, colonized understanding of things, you know, you can always argue your way out of it. I find this a lot online. You know, people will say, well, you know, but they have old growth. They're lying over there at Fairy Creek. You know, it's not just 2%. Like, look, there's old growth all the way up here. And, you know, and then you look at that data and it's like, apparently it's, you know, not close to the same level of, you know, grandiosity and beauty that, you know, these particular trees are. That's the other thing, right? I find that these two worldviews seem incompatible with this idea that, like life and, you know, trees and everything are just stuff, like there's data, you know, raw materials, versus spirit and alive, and that there's actually a relationship with them, that like those two things are actually, it seemed to be incompatible. And so when I looked out at Fairy Creek, right, at the sort of at river camp, and looked below, of course, at the entire clear cut, you know, mountain sides there, it was just so clear to me. I was like, these are two different ways of seeing the world that don't intersect, actually. Like, and I would argue that one is colonized, like the colonized understanding, versus call it like a relational animist indigenous understanding. And I really was with that sense of like, how does that awaken in the colonized mind? Like how to awaken that deeper sense of knowing that, wait a second, this is actually wrong, you know, this is off track. And I wonder for you, what have been those moments where maybe you felt that sense of you've broken through, you know, in connection, in a moment, and, you know, with a police officer or whatever it is, you know, those kind of magic revelatory possibilities.
It's been through connection. It's been through the people at Fairy Creek and the shared feeling of working together for something, for Mother Nature. When we really, as a group of people, come together for a cause that isn't of this world, it's for the trees, it's for the magic, it's for the ancestors, it's for spirit. We see new colors, we smell new smells we've never smelled before. And this is, I'm not kidding. This is how we move up and we evolve. We must do this. We must gather, continue to gather, because we are not living how we're supposed to be living. The normal that we have been placed in, the boxes that we were born in, are breaking. And when we go to Fairy Creek, we break the box. The box is broken. Our reality is broken. We leave the cave and we see the real world. That's happening. And I think when we make the intention to connect to spirit, spirit will start talking to us through dreams, and we'll start having visions. And I had a vision like a couple years ago at home, and it was so clear, and it was everything that came into my body. Like it was like a black and white film, like slide view, and everything that comes into my body that I touch, everything that I touch, every matter, shampoo bottle, food, everything affects Mother Earth. Like, and it's definite, 100%. Everything that I consume as a human being is affecting Mother Earth. And it's just, and that's a way that spirit has spoken, you know, and we can, and I would love to hear about everybody's, you know, views, but like, we know it's possible and it can happen. And these breakthroughs like that, if we have the intention to connect to spirit, it will blow our mind. We just have to be open to it. So how do we get the people that don't feel it to go there? I don't know. I know we have one life, and this is an important life. It's our lives right now are important to do the work that needs to be done. I know this 100%. We have this life. This is an important life to change the path that we're on, humanity, because it can go two ways right now, you know, this life. And we have to do everything we can this life to get it closer to spirit again.
Beautifully said. You know, I'm struck by the sense of there's a phrase I've come across called temporary autonomous zone. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but yeah, to me, it's a sort of a reckoning, like what you said, like when folks come together with that certain connection to spirit and this certain way of breaking outside of a certain reality box is, I think, the phrasing used. You know, I found it as well at Occupy Wall Street, you know, 10 years ago or so. Exactly, some similar moments of these like breaking through normalcy, whatever that was, right? And all of a sudden, like a different sense of possibility, right? Different sense of purpose emerged. And in some ways, the like how hard it is actually to transmit that unless someone experiences it, right? Because it really is trying to, you know, explain something in a way, in a fashion that is actually so experiential. And so I feel what you say, like when people go and they just touch that, it suddenly like blooms this other possibility. And so,
but
you know,
then we have teachers like Finch. Do you know Finch? I just have to say this too. Thank goodness for teachers like Finch and elders. And that's where elders come in. Finch from Fairy Creek, like, and then we have teachers that will teach. I'm sorry.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you. And I hear that as well, this function of the elder, and at least how I've been trained through my teacher, Stephen Jenkinson, has spoken that elders have this certain ballast and this certain weight of memory, right? This kind of entrainment to life as well, that I feel, you know, even speaking with Bill, I'm like, oh, I'm like talking to an old growth tree when I talk to Bill, like, as in he has that, it's like he's so clear as this channel that, and he's speaking from it feels like such a grounded place of constant invitation, right? Like, just come, bring the kids, you know, see, you'll know, like once you come, you'll know, actually. And so, you know,
you
there's
have
such
to come.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to get a snapshot now, though. Again, what is happening there on the ground? I know because there's been injunctions and there's been seasons of, you know, activism and this and that, but I would love to hear, your sense of, what is happening on the ground now in the current moment.
Perfect. Yeah. So right now, this past weekend, there was just an incredible gathering at Fairy Creek. People came together again, and they went into Salmon Camp, and they gathered. We've seen videos. Lady Chainsaw was there. Other incredible people. I saw pictures, and I wish I could have been there, but I have a court order saying I can't go there, which is so wrong. And it's just like First Nations not being able to go onto the land and territories is just so wrong. Grandma Losa went there, and she was harassed at the gate and saying that she needed a permission slip to go to Fairy Creek. Grandma Losa, an elder from the Tla'amin First Nation, and like she needs like from an Indian agent, like a permission slip, like that's what they used to do. And it's just like, quoting Grandma Losa, this is what she said: Teal Jones is now the Indian agent. And I want everybody to listen to that, because Teal Jones is now giving the permission slips to Indigenous elders to go up to Fairy Creek. It's wrong. It's wrong. What do you have to say about that, John Horgan? Like, for real, it's so wrong. And the fact that like some of us can't go up there now, and if we do, I'm told by my lawyer I probably couldn't bring my drum because it would cause a scene. Like it's seen as a weapon, my drum. Like this is truth, and this is the system that we're living in right now. And that's why I'm so happy to be a part of the Green Party, and to be working with Amita Kuttner and as Uma Anis, which is the cultural name that we made for it, and to really go in and try to change and bring in the Indigenous voice and the culture and the elders, because we live in a system that is deeply colonized, and it is missing heart, and it's a lot of work. But yeah, we have one life, and I'm so excited to be doing it. And I feel like this is the time, and there's so much opportunity. It's so exciting, though.
Beautiful. What's the invitation then on the ground now as well? Like, because I'm trying to get my head around exactly. Is there an ongoing camp there? Is there? I know that there's gatherings that sort of are called, specifically for certain times. So I'm curious to get a snapshot. Yeah, what is happening on the ground there in Fairy Creek, sort of ongoingly?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I not much. I know that the security is camping out 24/7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They know something's up. Well, I'm also reminded, I believe it might have been Gandhi who said this, but it said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. There's something along those lines. I feel that, that these waves, right, of kind of, the fact that your drum is seen as a significant cause for concern is really telling. Obviously, like an offering of spirit there, the power of the drum to bring together, to actually awaken, right, in the face of forgetting. It seems so powerful.
Yeah, it was the drum on the front lines that really touches people's hearts and gives people their own innate power, their sovereign power. It's the drums on the front line that the RCMP didn't like, because it's the drums that mobilized and it was a backing of spirit to the people who were working for the trees. And it was the RCMP that confiscated my drum because the sergeant couldn't take the power. I'm not even like fibbing or lying. They could not handle the power of the drums. And it's just so telling of what we're up against.
It strikes me as well then that these flashpoints that are, again, about very specific places, and at the same time, of course, they connect to a broader collision, one could say, between Indigenous wisdom and place-based stewardship, and then of course industry that wants to continually mine or excavate or dig or burn or extract more and more places, right? Of course, all around the world, because there's some recognition, it seems, to this idea that, well, to the colonized mind, the modern industrial mind, well, we need more because there's more need, right? So we have to have more, right? It's this constant kind of more. And it's buried in there somewhere, I think, is this assumption that when we have enough, we, meaning like the colonized structures or the organism, one could call it, when we have enough, we'll stop. But that's never true, right? Of course, it's never been true. you won't stop. Like the colonized understanding of ways will never stop, because it's trying to fill something that the stuff that the spirit that it turns into stuff will never fill. And I wonder if you might speak to that. I mean, in a grand way, in a sense, but also to the individual way. The same structures operate, right? The same sense of, okay, I always need more. I always need to fill. I always need to distract. Because of what, right? There's this unawares, this hole. But I wonder if you might speak to that as well. Like, what is it that could truly meet that need, right? That actually I think people are actually longing for.
Yeah. That's so good. It's like it's spirit. It's that connection. We have all the instruction that we have, and the world is so good at distracting us, and work, pay bills, eat, sleep, drink, like there's so many distractions. But like our ancestors are all around us and they want to help. They're just waiting. They're waiting. They're literally out there, just like waiting. We have distractions, but yeah, the instructions are inside of us. Once we connect, once we quiet, once we connect to nature, once we stop buying all our food and we start growing our food and reconnecting to spirit in this way, that's another big thing, to touch spirit through the food we eat and really watch what we put in our bodies. The instructions will come, they will come naturally.
Thanks for that. What do you hope to create, or what is the impact particularly through the Green Party, right? You've now been named as a deputy leader. And what does it look like to you? Because I've thought about this too, right? Like, what does it look like to actually have Indigenous voices and perspective at the political tables that they should be? And how might that impact, again, what decisions are made or how things are considered? And so I wonder for you, what do you hope to achieve or see within this position that you've been granted, offered, stepped into? I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Well, like it's a little bit of a like difficulties, just like anything. To raise the Indigenous voices in a good way, it will take a lot of coordination, but it's happening. And especially within the Green Party, I've talked to such beautiful people in IPAC, which is the Green Party's Indigenous Peoples Circle. And there's a lot of people, beautiful people that I know who I've asked to come on because I know their voice is so wise. And it's a process of figuring out how to do it, because this has never been done before. So, and I think that's the thing, like we keep failing and we keep getting into arguments, especially at Fairy Creek. It was like there was division, but it's never been done before. Fairy Creek was the epicenter of change on the planet, like in all of our time. More change happened there and learning than anywhere. And I think the same goes for the Green Party, because the heart is there. Like we've met so many beautiful people in the people in the Green Party were at Fairy Creek. Like they're for environmentalism. And the fact that they really are, they're learning how to really look for the Indigenous voices. It's a learning curve, just like anywhere else. But I think the intent and the heart is there. And one of the questions that I asked, like really early on, is is there a space for spirit in politics? And it's that's never been done before. So I think that transformation, I hope, will happen. And that's why I got into the Green Party, was because Amita Kuttner the interim leader, spoke about community and building community in ways that I didn't think was possible in politics. So the change is happening. It's just slow, painful, and like crushing. And it's just sticking it out. And like, the front goose can't fly at the front forever. The front goose has to switch out because it's crushing. But then there's beautiful people, and this is like a gift from spirit. There's always beautiful people that will come and take that place, and that's just something that we have to learn how to trust, because it's crushing.
Thanks for speaking that truth. I'm struck by whenever I connect to with these movements or these moments, right, from inside, that they're so different than how they're portrayed on the outside often, right, with media, and how they're just sort of caricaturized as these very simplistic, battles of what's going on. And I'm thinking of like the mainstream media coverage of, say, Fairy Creek. But how do we invite folks to recognize when these transformative moments are actually happening? Like, because that's now how I feel like I'm alert in that sense. Again, through experiences like Occupy and others, where I was like, oh, okay, this is another bursting of that, the veneer of it's all fine, and folks are coming together in these transformative, imaginative moments. And it's almost like I keep, before another one happens, I know, and again, Fairy Creek's ongoing, it's changing into a different chapter as well, but also all around the world, right? These bubblings, these bloomings happen. It's like, how do we just entrain people to say, look, do you know what you're looking at? And how do you support? Because when another wave comes in, it's like, it's so vital to support in any way that you can, because otherwise, the wave goes by. And then I think of Lao Tzu's quote, if you don't change direction, you end up where you're going. And, modern industrial culture, that's, I feel, it's headed in a very clear direction now. Like, as in, it's very undeniable what direction it's headed in, which is off a cliff. And so if we want things to change, well, then we have to be willing to recognize these transformative moments, right? When these flowerings of possibility and Indigenous like clarity and courage comes through, to be like, whoa, okay, yeah, we got to get on board with this.
Yeah. And like, let me say, like, we hopped on the wave at Fairy Creek. Like, we got on the wave, we got in the train. We followed spirit, and now we cannot keep up with our lives. It's going so fast. We're on spirit train. Like, we are on spirit train, and it's fast. And I love to say that, because like, we cannot keep up. Spirit keeps bringing us stuff, truly, because we've listened to our hearts, and really, our intention is to do the work of spirit. And it's a hard thing to do, with an open heart, and to stay on that path, because we just bump into each other naturally. So often we just bump into each other, and there's so much healing that needs to take place in the world. But then again, that's why we were born right now. We're spirit. Like, we were born to come into this time and bring in our light. Like, it's I don't know, and we're not told that in school. We're not told that. We have to learn it on our own, and we have to, just like, a lot of our people, the first people of Canada, like, we experienced a cultural genocide. We did. And to find our culture and to find our teachings, we have to search it out for a lot of people, because so much was taken away from us. And that's the same for humanity. It was taken over by the colonizer, but it's an intention, to find the path and to find the teachings. And they're there so strongly.
Well, Rainbow Eyes, thank you for being such a beacon of clarity and color as well, and bringing that rainbow spirit, to this invitation for folks to connect again, to connect with Fairy Creek, to see what's going on, and also to connect with that place in themselves that like wants to ride the spirit train and knows that it's the work of our time.
Yeah, and we can only do it together. You know, like we can only do it together. We talked to a lot of people that couldn't make it to Fairy Creek, and they're like, we wanted to come to Fairy Creek, we just weren't able to. But like, and then they start figuring out how to help where they are. And there's many different front lines. It's not just the front lines at Fairy Creek. There's many different ways to be on the front lines, and that's what we're learning. As long as we do it together. Yeah, you too,
Beautiful.
Ian. Thank you so much. Gayla Kessler. It's been really good.
Beautiful. Well, for those listening as well now and in the time to come, I'll put in the show notes links to how to connect with Fairy Creek, how to follow your Instagram as well, Rainbow Eyes, again, because you're always posting about stuff and around this. And it's a beautiful transmission from the Spirit Train. So once again, yeah, thanks for your beautiful time here today and sharing with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian.